All right, cool. All right, we'll go ahead and get started and pull up the little deck I'm going to use to kind of guide us through today. But again, I am actually, I guess I left it off my slide, but I can talk through who I am and why I put together this meetup group. So I'm going to get screen share going here and then I will get to talking. All right, cool. So this presentation was brought to you by AI, so I didn't alter it in any way. So that's why it is missing some things. But if we're here talking about AI, I might as well create presentations completely using AI. But the goal here today, or the reason why I brought together this meetup, was to be able to talk about AI at work and hopefully a little play on words, AI at work and AI. How do we apply AI in appropriate ways at work? A little bit about me. I run a digital agency called Thin Digital here based in Washington, D.C. We've started working with clients on AI applications, but we've been getting more questions on how to appropriately incorporate AI into companies, as well as just kind of training companies on how to use AI appropriately. And as we've been talking more, there just isn't a lot of best practices yet about how to appropriately use AI in the workplace. So one thing that we thought about doing was just putting together a meetup to be able to start exploring and talking with others about their experience already with trying to incorporate AI in the workplace, or if there is not rules inside your company around AI, how are you kind of figuring that out on your own? And also the topic for tonight was focusing on AI agents, which has been one of the hottest topics in terms of generative AI, is the ability to have AI that can work on its own based upon a goal. And so I will go through a presentation about some of those points first, and as well as show off some tools that do those particular things, which is AI kind of working on its own autonomously. And some of the things I've learned so far with implementing AI agents, and then also how I've applied using AI agents or agents of some type in business or in just kind of the work that I do every day. But before I get too far down the road, I'm just going to shout out some of the places I see in the chat. So this is your last call for your shout out. I see we got Sarasota, DC, Reston, Virginia, Fairfax. We have the DMV here, McLean, Philly. Oh, Bethesda, one time for Bethesda, up to 70. Well, okay, Baltimore, B more, if I'm saying it correctly, Baltimore. Still working on Tacoma Park. All right. So no, great. We got a nice turnout. Oh, there you go. Baltimore. There. You gotta work. I'm still working on it. Still working on it. So thank you for everyone showing up or showing out and showing up, being interested in this topic. Definitely feel free. I don't want to have to talk the whole time. So if you want to stop me at any point, ask questions, please do. Um, I love this to be as collaborative as possible. If you've tinkered or tried something yourself, definitely feel free to do it. I'm going to throw some polls up to make sure we're all starting in the same place. And so I'm going to drop the first poll here in a second. But I want to make sure that everyone's getting the most out of this. So if you have questions and you don't want to interrupt or mess the flow up, just drop it in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it. But I'm going to go efficiently and slow all at the same time. But this is for all of us here and not just for me to ramble and talk. All right, cool. So I will go ahead and get started. I'm going to click here. So first up, and actually I'm just going to drop this in the chat, just or poll here, just to make sure. Have you used ChatGPT? Yes. So I know we may have some new faces or new people who are just starting with AI, or maybe just even still exploring ChatGPT. But it'll be good to know who has, at least just to get a baseline of where people are starting from. So I know if I'm talking over people's heads or if we're all starting in the same place. But it'll just help me to know where people are and how far they are in their kind of AI journey. And then also, in addition to that poll, if you want to share, if you started using AI at work yet, if you haven't started using AI at work yet, or has your company started figuring out rules and regulations for using AI? But it'll be great if people can start sharing that in the chat, because that will definitely get some conversations going. If one, respond if you use ChatGTP or used it at all, or you're just still trying to figure it out. But then also, really big goal of AI at work is just help us all understand how other people are using AI in their everyday when they're at their 9 to 5. So if you want to drop how you're kind of using it now, or what you hope the experience of AI to be in your office, would be pretty awesome. Again, the slide was done using AI in a couple of prompts. This is a shout out, they're not paying me, but Gamma.ai is a very exceptional tool for just creating presentations off of, they have a text to presentation prompt that's really good, and it's really user friendly. I've been using it. I think I stopped using Google Slides because this is really good, because I can copy and paste in an outline and it lays it out pretty nicely. You pick a template and it's really good. So it's just a really slick tool. But today I use nothing but AI to present today. But again, I think what we've all kind of been experiencing over the last couple of months is the explosion of generative AI brought on by ChatGTP. And as we move to that, there's this, a few weeks ago, actually, I'm trying to go back, I have the repo up here, but you had a project called AutoGPT that was started, I guess, when's the date here? I was looking for the date, but I don't see the date immediately. But this really started the explosion around this idea around AI that worked on its own. And this became kind of an open source GitHub project that then spurred a bunch of other projects around using baby AGI and a bunch of other tools, and and providing
Other options.
AI the ability to kind of have long memory to be able to support the ability of AI agents or AI to work autonomously. But I'm going to take a quick pause here because I see a couple people posted ways they're using ChatGPT. All right, cool. I see some people aren't using it at work. We got for hobby projects, and hobby projects are cool. I've done some too. I created a podcast that's been pretty fun. Machine learning for customer solutions. That's pretty cool. Midjourney, ChatGPT, Bard's one I haven't used as much. I've only tested it every once in a while. And then like Sweeney, I use it every day, all day now. It's pretty much it's like tabbed. I think I have 5 or 6 AI tools I'm using now. So it's great to see we have a pretty good mix of people using AI for different things at work. Midjourney for generating images. I love Midjourney. Pretty obsessed about it. But yes, so what's been really neat over the last couple of weeks has been the explosion of AI agents, or AI that is working autonomously on its own based upon a goal. And so let me go to the next slide. All right, so cool. So real world, and I think Lynn, we were talking a little bit about AI before more people were on the call, but as you start thinking about the idea of AI that can work on its own against a particular goal, you can start thinking about kind of real world applications of giving AI a particular goal or focus and allowing it to work on its own to accomplish tasks. So in healthcare, that could be really interesting around medical research. Finance, that could be done around personalization, or obviously automation of trading, which people are already really using AI aggressively for. And then the same thing around e-commerce, but maybe more on the personalization or really helping to work having bots that work autonomously to support customers or make the shopping experience efficient. So there could be some really fun and engaging ways people can take advantage of AI that works on its own. Before I go any further, I know I've kind of talked about AI, autonomous AI. If you're in the chat, if you don't want to interrupt or want to talk, you can go ahead and leave a chat. Is it clear what I'm referring to when I talk about AI that works on its own autonomously? Is that too far down the AI rabbit hole for some folks? But I just want to make sure that I am clear to everyone and it makes sense before I keep going further, or if I should add a little bit more clarity for someone who wants. There are no stupid questions. We're all learning AI. This is for many folks their first time really being exposed to it. But if I need to kind of just clearly talk about what AI is, or at least what we're all experiencing with a tool like ChatGTP, then I can kind of set there. But yeah, it looks like we may have a few people that are super brand new to it, but I'll just kind of quickly pull up ChatGTP and you'll see here, I was using it to work on an agenda for today. But for those who are new to all things chat or all things AI, particularly platform like OpenAI and ChatGTP, that is a specific type of AI, which is generative AI. So you're interacting with a chatbot. That chatbot has been trained on knowledge from parts of the internet. It's been trained to be able to handle different parts of speech, as well as to handle conversations in different languages. And so ChatGTP has been really popular because of the scale of the language model, how robust it can handle a variety of different scenarios. And because it's been so impressive in its ability to handle a variety of conversations and complex scenarios, it's become hugely popular. And so it's from being able to write code.
Why are you looking at me like that?
I think and for those who may not be intentionally talking, I think
Why are you looking at
may
me
not
like
be
that?
muted.
Mm.
But yes, so for those who are new to ChatGTP, it's really, and particularly generative AI is what it's doing when it's producing its results is because it's trained on language, it's predicting the next word based upon the knowledge it's been trained on and on its model. And so it appears to be talking and aware and knowledgeable, it is knowledgeable, but it's not really talking to you. It's just using its trained knowledge to predict the next possible word. And so that's really important, particularly in how you use it and how you review the information that it generates. So if you're just asking it to write a fictional article or story, it's great. You don't have to worry about accuracy, but in cases that you're asking it to find true facts, you do need to be careful because it is predicting the next possible word. There's a term or phrase that's used in the AI world called hallucination. And that's really when the AI just gives you a response that really isn't factual. It's just producing, based upon its model, the best possible answer. And so in some cases, it may not be true if you're asking for a fact, like if are tomatoes red? It can use its knowledge to be able to define that. But if you're asking it a much more complex question that it should have a very factual answer, if it doesn't have it, it will still give you an answer. And so that's where you would get something that they call the industry a hallucination, where it gives you a result even though it's not true. And so that's one of the big things you do need to be wary of, particularly if you're using AI that's not connected to the internet, because then the model you have higher chances of hallucination when it comes to the results you get. So I would just highly recommend, if you're trying to do like a book report or a research paper, that you also go back and refer to references that the AI is referring to in the results to make sure it actually is a real thing on the internet or a real source and not something it kind of made up or hallucinated. let's see. But yes, so but yes, still I see a few people here also chiming in here or there, but it's one of the big things that yes, hallucination is real, and different models have varying levels of hallucination. And so it becomes really important as you're using other tools that are not ChatGTP, or even ChatGTP still hallucinates itself. But as you move away from ChatGTP and try other tools like Bard or Poe or other platforms that may be trained on different models, Alpaca, which is open source, you're going to, as more language models like ChatGTP become popular, you're going to start experiencing varying levels of hallucinations or bad results. And that's going to largely depend on how much their language model has been trained on information, as well as a large part of do their language model have access to internet while it's responding to your questions. So those two things really play a big part in how well you're getting factual information back. And I see we have a few people dropping comments in here, so I'm trying to read them in real time, but I think we have other people in here chiming in. But hopefully that is a quick crash course on what generative AI is, and that's what most of us are interacting with when you're interacting with a ChatGTP, is that you have AI generating results based upon a trained model of information or language. But then there's other things that are generative AI, which are like Midjourney, which I think a few people mentioned. So you can have generative AI for art, you can have, or for generating images, and platform like Facebook just announced, as well as ChatGTP will announce at some, or start rolling out to a larger audience, will be multimodal interactions or conversations with language models, where you can upload images or other things to the interaction you have with the language model. For it to, you can upload a picture, it can use computer vision to interrogate the picture and use that as part of its response back to you. So as those become more prevalent, those will allow for not just text conversations, but you can upload pictures, take pictures. I believe Facebook's model that it presented yesterday also allows for video and other modes of, or also uploading files. So it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of months as these language models become more robust and allow for more than just text as inputs to be able to have to receive information back from the language models. All right, cool. So if that is, all right, cool. So any questions there before I go on?
For you.
Where's spoon?
All right.
You still in the call?
No, you can bring me the food. Just bring me the food.
And also, I'm not sure, but if you're not intending to talk, you may be unmuted. So just double check your mic, just in case you may be worried about that. All right, cool. All right, so we're gonna move on. I think we covered the basics on AI. And so I'll keep going. So for those who are new, AI allows you to generate AI using things like ChatGTP. The next step forward in this journey is the ability to use tools to be able to allow the AI to work on its own. I'm going to kind of do a live demo. We'll see how well the live demo goes on that. I'll share, there's ways to be able to interface with these tools. If you are not a hardcore programmer. So, so yes, actually, I'll just jump to that because we can come back and talk through more use cases and disadvantages after that.
Sauce was chicken.
I'll leave some for you.
All right, cool. All right, so let's go. I'm going to pull up
I want sauce and chicken.
a few. I'm going to pull up this agent GPT. So this is right now, if you're not a developer, there are ways to interact with AI agents that are not, let's see, that are not, so yeah, for those who are, so for those who are not developers, sorry, I've muted just in case I think someone was not, had a hot mic there. if you're not a developer, there you have to interact with a AI agent or autonomous AI using a web-based solution. For those who are more ambitious, there's places like HuggingFace where you can, it gives you a little bit of interface, so that's kind of a tier down than from a nice web user experience or a nice-ish user experience that you can use to interact with or AI agent. But then Hugging Face is really awesome platform where people deploy, share their own language models, build on top of language models. And what's nice about Hugging Face is you're able to provide a little bit of visual or a UI or user experience here to be able to visually interact with a language model that someone is building, tinkering with, trying, and you're able to kind of clone it and test it. So if you're a little bit more ambitious and want to be able to build on another language model or fork or build upon someone else's project, Hugging Faces is a really great place to go to find other language models. I'll kind of click out here. You can see people share projects. I've been starting projects that I've been paying attention to or even kind of tinkering with myself. But Hugging Faces is a great place for those who are a little bit more tech savvy, have some experience with coding Python or just coding in general, that then they can get their hands a little bit dirtier in terms of seeing what's underneath the hood with some of these open source language models. But because we have a pretty mixed group, I'm going to focus on the web-based options for interacting with agents. So you'll see here, though, one thing that you will need, particularly for those who are new to using these types of tools, you're going to need to sign up for an OpenAI API. I will quickly show that for those that this is new for them. But if you want to be able to try many of these tools, you're going to need to create your own OpenAI API account. So if you I'm going to log out so I can go through the full process here. If you go to platform.openai.com, and I'm going to go all the way back here. You're going to need to just sign in to this account. Once you're in, I want to go here to this page. It's going to take you to a little dashboard once it's finished loading. And once you're here, you'll be able to go to the top right and view or manage or create your own API keys. So there's two important things if you're going to try to test out some of these autonomous tools. One, you're going to need to actually put a credit card or actually put a card against your platform.openai account. The other thing that you'll need to do is to generate a secret or API key that you'll use. I'll show you how to do that and I'll delete it later. But you'll just, when you come in here, you'll need to put a card against it. If you sign up for the first time, you get like $10 to $15 for free. And then after that, you'll be charged. I'll highlight that a little bit more once we get into running an agent. And then you'll need to create a key because you'll see I have a couple of agents that I've been using. I label them, I'm using it for AutoGTP and I may label which agents it's for. So then I know I keep track of my keys that way. So you'll just label what it's for, or you don't have to really give it a label, but you'll create a secret key. I would copy that, put it somewhere safe. Then you can go into a tool like this. I would still be very mindful where you put your keys because, and actually I'll go back to highlight this point, is your key is important because the key is how OpenAI bills you for the amount of time you use the API. So you can see here, you can set a limit so you can make sure that you don't go over budget. I would definitely make sure that, I think by default, they set a limit in there to make sure you don't spend more API for OpenAI than you can feel comfortable paying for. But also you can always go back in here and check to see how much OpenAI API usage you've gone through. So I tend to keep an eye on this, particularly as you're running an agent, to make sure that if you're running it for a while and you want to make sure you're not going a little too crazy in terms of your API usage, you can come back here and it pretty much tracks almost in real time the usage that you're turning through. So that's what you're going to need if you're going to want to try one of these tools. I'll highlight a few others, but Agent GPT is one that I've been using the most, and you can kind of see that over here. I'll share some of the ones I've been tinkering with, but we're going to go ahead. I'm going to use one that they have just here going. So I'm going to go ahead. They had web search here for a little bit, but then it cost them too much money to do. But I'm going to highlight what it's doing here as it's working. So the one important thing that you do when you create an agent is you define the goal of what you want the agent to do. So you'll see write some code for a platform game or for creating a game. What the agent's going to do, because it's using, many of them are using AGI or they're running some code that allows the AI to make decisions on its own. So the AI is defining tasks that it needs to do to accomplish this goal. So to accomplish this goal of writing code, it needs to research and select the game engine for writing that code. It needs to design the game mechanics, and then it needs to implement and test the physics to make sure the game works well. So that's pretty much how all these agents will work. You'll define a goal. Sometimes I get really ambitious with the goals that I create. But the clearer the goals can vary. You can have very broad goals or you have very specific goals. There's sometimes when I write goals, I'm asking it to find 10 specific things on the internet for the agents that have access to the internet and to return it back in a certain format. So it really varies, and it's kind of fun to experiment with these to be able to see which ones work the best. But you'll see here, I'm going to pull up the result. You can see as the agent works, it is now returning back the information that it found. So you can see in this case, the first goal was for it to research the type of game engine. So you can see it researched and it found that there was a few different platforms it can pick from. Unity Construct is a gaming tool or platform. Unreal is another platform that we use to write code for games. You can see that let's see what it is select. It selected Unity for writing the code for the game. So now it's actually generating a code block for generating, let's see, it's through writing the character as well as writing the platform or writing code for the physical platform in the game. And so you'll see it's going to keep working through. And this is one of the really interesting parts around autonomous AI is as it works through each task, it creates additional tasks. And so it's actually moving pretty quickly today. So it's already worked through, looks like 6 tasks already. And as it's going through those tasks, it's creating new ones as it accomplishes tasks. So let's see how far it's gone now. It's created, let's see here, in this section, it created mechanics and player controls for the platformer game. Let's see here, the player character should be able to jump. So it created some logic for jumping. It created some values for gravity. And so I'm going to let it keep running. And so you can see it's turning pretty quickly. This is an important point to call out. I'm running it against GPT 3.5 Turbo in terms of the API. There's one reason for this. It's the cheaper model to run against, but also still get a high quality response. If you really want to bump up the quality of the response, you can move it up to GPT-4, but there will be a noticeable cost difference in terms of the API usage you're going to see come back here. It's still going to, depending on the agent, I think even when I've run GPT-4 on Agent GPT, on most runs, it still doesn't go over $2 to $3, but it's still $2 to $3 versus 20, or 15 to 20 cents per run. So it's a pretty big difference in terms of, 10 to 15 cents per run versus $2 to $3 per run. But you will get measurably different results with GPT-4, particularly like things with coding. GPT-4 just performs at just a higher quality rate in terms of writing code. So if you're looking to maybe do a fictional book or have an agent like write a really great fictional story, I would probably use GPT-4. If you're just looking to do initial research, I would do 3.5. My strategies have been to, if I'm playing around with the idea, I would do it in 3.5 using the GPT 3.5. Make sure that I've got the goal set really well to get the results I'm looking for. If I get the results I'm looking for, I'll go back and rerun the goal again, but using GPT-4. So once I know that I've set my goal really well, I'll go back and run the goal again, knowing that it's going to give me the results I'm looking for, but then I'm not going to waste $2 or $3 on a goal if it's not properly tuned well. But you'll see it's running well. I think I have it set for running to run through the loop 50 times. I don't think we're at 50 yet, but let's see how many tasks it's run through so far as I've been just rambling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13. But you'll see there's, as it's working, it's now going to program the player to move and to jump and attack. It's going to implement an enemy AI to react to the player's action. It's going to add a boss battle at the end of each level. It's going to create a list of enemy types. It's going to assign unique behaviors on attacks. It's going to create an algorithm to determine the enemy's movement. And that's the kind of fun part. You'll see it's been adding even more tasks as I've been talking even this moment, is it's going to create a tutorial screen. And so this is kind of the power and a kind of snapshot of what these agents can do, is once you assign it off on a task and goal, it can go off on its own to start making its own decisions on how to accomplish that goal. And you can really start kind of, your imagination can kind of go wild there of, and there's times where I'll just set the agent off on a goal and just leave my computer, particularly the web-based ones, and just let it run on its own and just let it go off and come back with ideas. I'll pause here for a second because I know I've been talking for at least 15 minutes. And so if there are questions, leave it in the chat or go ahead and just yell out loud if you have questions so far. I see Sam left a note here, which AI out there is based off of bodies of true facts and information. For most models, many of them are, I think some information was leaked on like ChatGTP or OpenAI. Much of its knowledge was garnered from places like Wikipedia, which obviously has some issues with being factual, depending on which Wikipedia page. Obviously, it went to Google to find a lot of places. It obviously went to places like Reddit to get language and conversation. And so it used a number of different places across the internet. I believe it was a few other kind of Q&A like platforms that also pulled information from to train the model. But that is kind of the standard for a lot of these larger language models, that it starts to scrape information from places where there is a lot of information. And so places like Wikipedia tend to be the first place it goes to or a lot of the language model tend to go to start generating data for their language models. And so there's obviously some pros and cons, and obviously there's a lot of conversation about AI and bias. And so I think that's why there's a lot of interest now outside of OpenAI for individuals to start creating their own language models that then intentionally take in consideration for bias, or maybe that they're only trained on certain information, so it's forgetting about a whole category of information or category of people. And so that comes up a lot, particularly around the image generative model. So it tends to lean towards certain races and characteristics, and so it's weaker in other areas because it's trained on certain information and certain images. So that's something to think about when you're looking at AI or where it's getting its information from. I think so. Yeah, that's one big advantage of these open source language models, that you can make up for those weaknesses, and as well as you can work with developers, other people to be able to help you embed data. It's called embedding data. So you can help train the AI on information it doesn't know, particularly as you're thinking about your own company. You could use your own language model, OpenAI, other platforms, and train it on information about your business or information the AI does not have access to be able to allow it to respond. And so that's one way to make up for knowledge gaps, is to be able to embed additional data into the AI or give it additional data that it can use to be able to provide its responses. All right, cool. There's some more questions down here. Right now, like Agent GPT, you can't feed it other services. There are other, let's see here. I think it's like this one here. Is it this the one? I think this is, I went ahead and, there's other ones that do have access to the internet, as well as you can, I believe it's this one. Oh, they made a few updates here. So let me log back into it, because I think they just pushed an update. But there's a few other ones that allow you to append documents as a way to train it on information. But if you're looking to like really customize your agent, you'll probably need to use Hugging Faces or another model. Like, yeah, this is the, let's see here. So yeah, so this is the one that allows you to turn on access to the internet. So that does help a little bit in terms of producing better responses, because then you can, and it's not completely relying on the language model to generate results. It can also go to the internet to find factual references to things that it's trying to do. God mode is another one that does that as well. I think I had it, it does that really well. So it'll go off to the internet to try to find information. I was trying to develop some prompts. And so you can see I let this one run for a pretty long time, but it created a bunch of information, and you're able to download the information and things that it creates into just text files. But right now, for some of these tools, you're at the most, you're limited to giving it access to the internet and giving it either text files with additional information, or I've seen one or two that are now playing around with ideas of allowing you to upload files to help train it on information that you want to have. Did that, hopefully that answer your question? Yeah, Agent GPT is probably one of the most user-friendly out of them. There is another one that's probably a little more user-friendly that I've been tinkering with, and it's called AI Agent. I thought I had them all up. Oh gosh, all right, I will, let's see here. It may be one of the ones I have here. I didn't pull it out, but there's another one that's really pretty. It has a slightly nicer user interface, and it feels a little easier to navigate around. I'm just going to see if it's in my browser history, that I can easily find it. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so this is AI agent. And so this one's even nicer in terms of just a very clean interface, and just makes it a little easier to follow. There's less kind of spinning wheels. It just, you put in the goal, and as it works through, it just presents it, but it's just visually just more digestible than some of the other tools that are out there. So, and again, it kind of has it creates a task list that you can see here on the side, and you can add a new task as it's working through it. But visually, this is one of more appealing ones, and just easier to kind of follow what it's doing. But in terms of power, AI agent or Agent GPT has been one that I've been using the most, because it just works really well. And then I've been using this one called godmode.spaces, because this was probably one of the first ones I was using that had access to the internet. Sometimes gets caught in a little spinning wheel of death, or just in a loop. So this is one thing I've experienced looking at this project, where the decision making for the agent, once it started running, this ran for probably, oh gosh, maybe 50 plus loops, maybe even 100 loops. After a while, it kind of just kept looping and doing the same thing and over again. Some of the tools provide ways, like here, you can give it feedback. Some, like with God mode, it doesn't always listen to your directions, and it kind of keeps doing. So this is the one where if you tell it to stop doing something, it may listen or may not listen to you redirecting it to do something else. But there's times where I do tell it to just to export something, and it'll do what I ask it to do. So it is, some of these tools have better functionality in terms of redirecting the agent in terms of what it's tasked to do. But I'll stop there because I know I've been talking a lot and jumping around, and I was also waiting to see if we can get to the finish line for the one that I started here about 15 minutes ago. I'm curious to see how far it's gotten and if it's still running. So it's still running. I think we are. Yeah, so it's still running, and it's currently working on, now it's adding a timer to each level, and it's creating a system for detecting collisions next, and it's going to add sound effects and background music to the game. I'm curious about how I accomplish that one, because it doesn't have web search capabilities. So I'm curious about how it does things like creating sounds. But you'll see Agent GPT is definitely, you can see it works really well. I'm going to pause here just to take a look at the chat messages, and then I'll highlight a few other tools. So let's look here. Chat. Yes, ChatGTP does write code as well. I think the one thing that is really neat about the autonomous agents, and particularly if you go on YouTube, you'll see some guys creating multiple agents where there's two agents kind of code or pairing or writing code together. Because when you're writing code with ChatGTP, you run into a few things, which is you can only generate so much results at one time, and you can only feed it so much information at once. And so you kind of run into kind of max tokens or things that you can feed it at a time. And so the agents help you work around kind of the current limitations of using ChatGTP to write code, which is, or particularly if you're using ChatGTP. If you're using the API, you can work around those limits. Obviously, I think I saw someone drop that in there. But if you're using the chat interface to write code with ChatGTP, you're going to run into token limits. And I think someone highlighted that as well. Let's see, any other points? Good questions. Have you been able to feed it limited amounts? What I have been doing, I'm looking at one of the comments here about feeding it information. What I've done with Agent GPT, as well as some of the other ones, they don't really set maximums on how big your goal can be. So I think I may have in like God mode wrote a gigantic prompt. Yeah, so this is like one huge prompt that I wrote in terms of the goal for the agent. And so that's how I've somewhat fed it some information, because I fed it some parameters into my larger prompt that I wanted it to do. And so that was my way of kind of feeding it limited information to be able to train it on a little bit more information of what I wanted it to accomplish in the goal. And I was more descriptive specifically in what task I wanted it to take on inside of the larger prompt that I created. So I think that was for Todd, that, yeah, that's been some of my hacks. And so I would actually go into like ChatGTP, have ChatGTP help me create a really solid goal for the agent. I'll actually tell ChatGTP, I'm trying to create a concise goal for an AI agent that I wanted to achieve these things. Help me to create a goal. And if there is a character limit for the tool that you're using, I would then give ChatGTP the character limit for the goal that I'm wanting to put into another tool or into the web-based agent. And so that's been my hack of trying to like get as much information into my goal, or at least train it on information that I want it to do. Let's see, I think Gary said design a game it's very advanced and difficult. So yeah, it's really fun. I think the other thing that's been really interesting as you watch these agents work is you start learning as a human how you would navigate through this process. So maybe you don't actually use any of this code, but now as a human, you now have a very structured process that you may be able to take on yourself or be able to work through in terms of your own process of maybe how to develop a game. So now you really have a pretty solid blueprint of how you could do game development based upon using the kind of logical model the AI is working through in terms of building your game. And so that's been really interesting. Watching the agent work and process through ideas is actually sometimes really helpful for me because it helps me think about different ideas for the project I'm working on. And so that becomes a really helpful way of teasing out information you get from the agent. Let's see here. Let's see. So task. For most of the, I'm looking at, there's a question here about, are the results limited to text files? So right now, most of the agents that are out there, or at least the web-based ones, are pretty much all text-based and or generating code. If you're looking for ones that are more interesting, I would go to HuggingFace because you'll find more interesting agents on HuggingFace that are, maybe generating images and other things. And so I found some really cool ones there that are one that are more multimodal. So I know ChatGTP hasn't released openly their image multimodal, or where you can upload an image and that is fed into the model, but you'll find some HuggingFace models that are multimodal as well as are a little bit more experimental than some of the web-based tools that you're finding out there. So I would definitely, if you're looking for something a little bit more advanced, I would go on HuggingFace to see if you can find a project. The other thing is if you're a Redditor or if you frequent Reddit and go to either like OpenAI or there's a couple language model Reddits that you'll find people sharing projects they're working on. And that tends to be a place where I'll find interesting projects that are maybe more advanced than what you're seeing in some of the web-based solutions. So I would definitely recommend going to Reddit, and particularly the language model Reddit communities, because that's where people who are more avid, developers who are working on more creative projects are dropping and sharing things on HuggingFace that they're working on. So definitely, if you're looking for something a little bit beyond just text, that would be the place I would go to find really interesting projects. I think Andrew dropped an article there highlighting LangChain and Pinecone, which is a whole another rabbit hole in terms of a place where you can continue to keep learning. I'm just scanning the comments here of any questions that jump out. Yeah, I see Todd highlight here, LangChain. I will talk about that here for a second because things like ChatGTP, when you're having a single conversation thread with their language model, it retains the conversation. But as you move into things like our web-based solutions here for like Agent GPT, they're using things like LangChain and Pinecone to be able to store a longer history with the interaction that you're having. And so those tools will become, if you're looking to learn more about that space, I would definitely go on YouTube. I can share some links after the meetup to a couple of really good YouTube tutorials on just better understanding LangChain and Pinecone and vector databases and how you need to store information for AI to be able to easily extract information that you want it to retrieve later. But Pinecone and LangChain really become a game changer for these tools because now you can, like one thing that we're starting to do, going back to AI at work, is starting to use LangChain and Pinecone to create long history chats for projects. And so you can do the same thing with ChatGTP, but we're trying to move that into a chatbot within our team channel. So for each client, you have a chatbot with LangChain and Pinecone, and we're storing long history within each client. And also we're storing it inside of our own container. So now it's not being stored inside of ChatGTP, but being able to say for project A, here's their scope of their project. Here's the notes from today's meeting. Just read it and review it. Don't do anything about it. But using LangChain and Pinecone inside of Slack to be able to now have a little AI assistant that knows everything about the client, and to be able to ask it questions of, when's the last time we talked about this with the client? Or what was the file that referenced a particular thing that we share with the client on a certain date? And so being able to have a little AI assistant that sits in our Slack channel for every single project that allows us to be able to interact with that agent that knows everything about them, that's not going off to OpenAI, that then we're able to kind of manage in our nice little tidy box, is something that we're starting to experiment to allow us to be able to have AI that has a form of knowledge about what our client's doing. And then we're also protecting our client's information because we're not sending it off to OpenAI. And it's being trained against the model. And I know there's other ways to protect that, but that's just one way that we're starting to experiment with bringing it back home to AI at work, is starting to think about how things like Agent GPT, or this idea of having agents work autonomously, could be used for clients. And so that one part of talking about LangChain and Pinecone becomes really interesting, of starting to think about using chat that has history and that has knowledge, and it can store that information for later. And it also can exist outside of a tool like ChatGPT. Becomes really interesting for businesses in terms of, now you can have agents that have really long memory, or AI that has really long memory about a specific topic that can be managed inside your business. Maybe you open up chat to that agent or AI inside of a Slack channel, or Microsoft Teams, or some other platform that you use for productivity, as well as maybe even deploying a version of agent or AutoGPT inside of a kind of secure server or box inside of your company to do redundant tasks, or I think it's been really interesting seeing how people are creating agents inside of companies, or creating whole virtual companies of agents, one for HR, one for operations, and each agent specializes in a particular skill or thing or knowledge within a company. So I think that's been really interesting stuff. So I want to pause there. I want to take a look at messages. I'm going to also peek back at what the agent's been up to. It may be done by now. No, let's see if it's finished, because I know I maxed out. I think I maxed it at 50. Let's see if it finished. No, it's still going. So I guess I may need to check my settings here. Let's see here. Yeah, I set it to 50 loops. So I guess it has not hit 50 loops yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting pretty close to it. But it's writing a restart level, restart game function here. So it's writing some restart functions. What did it write above here? It wrote some JSON for storing. What is it storing in JSON? It's storing the score and health of the characters. Let's see here. What is it writing here? Define the scoring system for the reward for players, but it is still off in writing code. But imagine, and I think this is, if there's a bigger debate about, the impact of this on certain skill sets or jobs, you can definitely see how this could be used in a productive way by developers, but also you can see how you can see why some developers or certain skills or companies or roles get worried about tools like this, because now for a couple of dollars per hour, you can have an agent write code 24 hours a day. Don't have to sleep, don't have to eat or go to the bathroom, and continually be writing code. And so that's something, as I think we're all understanding our role with AI and ourselves at work, understanding how these tools can definitely kind of impact how we all work together, but also potentially how it impacts our role or how we define our roles, because some of these tools can do some of the things that we do, but maybe even better once these tools get even, they just are more appropriate for work environments. All right, cool. So I'm just still shocked at how much code this thing is still writing. All right, cool. So I'm scanning comments here. I see a good note here. I think ultimately game devs process will be much faster. I definitely agree. Game development is going to be hugely impacted in a productive way. I've been seeing so many really interesting projects around like text to 3D objects and just rendering, Runway AI and all those other platforms. That one's less 3D rendering, but there's so many really interesting AI tools for rendering AI or video game development. It's going to be really cool. Your game is going to come out faster, cheaper, maybe hopefully cheaper over time. Scanning more comments here. Google announced a number of coding features. Oh yeah, Maker Suite. So yeah, there's a number of the AI race for language models are definitely on. And so I think it's going to be interesting now with Facebook and Google and even open source players on like HuggingFace creating language models. And particularly, I believe the next big wave of this is people creating unique language models for unique niches. So maybe I create a real estate language model that is really fine-tuned to all things that real estate agents need, and really fine-tuned to all the language that there are all the acronyms that I don't know about real estate, that real estate people know, to be able to fine-tune a language model that understands all the vernacular of real estate, but also is trained in logical patterns of how real estate agents make decisions. And I think that really becomes the next wave of people creating language models for whatever niche they're in and say, hey, you can pay X amount of money to get access to the language model we've trained that knows your business really well. And now you can build something on top of a language model that is specific to your type of your industry. So I think it's going to be really interesting how the AI wars play out in terms of now going into individual verticals and creating models that are specific to your business. And so that's going to be an interesting place to go. Let's see, I'm scanning points here. Thank you guys. I appreciate the love. I'm trying not to sweat jumping around tabs. But all right, I will highlight a few other tools that I just have been really impressed by in terms of web-based ones, and then we'll just open up to questions. Oh, this is another thing to highlight. There are a number of like HuggingFace, like a platform where it allows you to try different language models. For many of them, you're going to still need to have your own open AI API key. Like I think this is one example I had up here before. You're going to need to plug in your own API key here, as well as this one requires a HuggingFace token to run it. There's other ones like this one here that is Agent GPT streamit.app. This one you can enter in a SERP API. SERP is a API service that gives an API service for Google searches. So you can, particularly some of these tools that have built autonomous agents, you can give it internet access by getting your own API. For SERP, you can get it for free. SERP is serp.api.com. So the tools that do provide internet access, you can create an account, and then once you have that account, you get so many searches for free, but then if you want to bump that up, you can bump that up to $50 a month, and you can see at $50 a month, you get 5,000 searches per month. Right now, I'm using SERP for an automation we're doing for a client to automate content creation. And so we have a WordPress site that we're using some automation to generate a bunch of content using prompts and a bunch of other things, but it uses searches to be able to beef up the content it writes for WordPress. So this has become a really popular tool even for our team internally to be able to give AI web search capabilities in terms of doing really advanced integrations that you want to expose the automation integration to web searching. But yeah, SERP is definitely one of the tools you want to do for that. And so many of the tools that do give you the ability to give access to the AI agents to the internet will ask for a SERP API, and that's the place you would go, and you can create one for free. And then some of the other tools, you don't need to do that because they'll just ask you to pay money to get access to the internet. So that's this. I'll share links to a few of these in the messages inside of the Meetup group. And then this is one that I haven't got to, but I've been seeing a little bit of buzz for it. But this one is next on my list to tinker with. But honestly, these are just really fun. Oh, I haven't tinkered. I don't know why I pulled this one up, but this one allows you to kind of mind map using text prompts, which is really interesting, but I haven't even had a chance to tinker with this one. I'll put a link to this because I haven't even had a chance to play with this one yet. But yeah, so I will pause there because I know I've been talking for at least 30 minutes now. Oh, I see that Zapier is amazing. Zapier is actually really amazing because we've built a bunch of automations using Zapier and Make.com and that both have really good OpenAI integrations. And we've started like automating our discovery process, and we've used Zapier to be able to like create a huge discovery document using a Google form. So people enter in information about their startup in the Google form. We've written a bunch of prompts using Zapier. So for all the different parts of kind of our discovery process, and then it generates a huge document generated through AI and OpenAI's API based upon the things they put into your Google form. And so we've starting to like automate a large part of our business by just saying, hey, once you sign up with us and start your retainer and do other things, fill in this form, it generates our big discovery doc. We go into the client call, like, here's your discovery doc that's been generated for you. And it's done in minutes versus us spending weeks and interns or team doing research. And so, yeah, we could probably do a whole separate talk, and maybe that could be a talk for our next meetup about using Zapier or Make.com to do automations. If that's an interesting topic, leave a thumbs up or drop yeah, that's a good idea in the chat. But I'm going to pause there so we can start kind of closing out because I don't want to abuse everyone's time here. It looks like we finally got to the end. We finally got to the end of our agent and maxed out its loops. And so we'll see here. Actually, let's see. The last thing it was trying to do was to create power-up shop where players can purchase power-ups and in-game currency and real money. Now that's interesting. I'm curious to see how it's going to do that. This is, and probably the last note here, which is now that you have all this code, you now actually still need to like format it in a format that you can actually compile it into a Unity game. I would have to think about it now with this amount of code. I would probably go into ChatGPT and ask it to help me compile it for Unity, just because I'm not an expert in Unity. I've only tinkered on the edges on creating games for Unity, but you have enough components. You can do two things, which is you can take all the code that's been written, go hire someone, Fiverr, Upwork, and be like, hey, here's my game idea. I've already generated a lot of code in the structure of the game. Here's some code, you can start, take it and run with it. Or you can work with ChatGPT if you're really trying to be ambitious and try to use the code snippets that were generated to work with ChatGPT to walk you through the process to do it. And there's some really cool videos on YouTube. I'll drop some links of kind of using ChatGPT to be like your coding coach. You can ask it how to actually deploy the code. You can ask it how to compile the code. And so that could be one way if you're really feeling ambitious about trying to write your own code or deploy this on your own, to kind of ask ChatGPT to become a coding coach for you and kind of walk you through the process of deploying the code that you generated here. So that could be one way to do it, but it's generated a lot of code. And then with this particular tool, it can generate as an image, which is not really productive, but you can copy it or generate a PDF. I'm just curious to see how many pages it generated and stuff. And I know recently they have a sharing feature. So let's see, which is really cool that they added. So you can actually now, I think, I forgot where they've, let me pause it. But maybe they don't have that feature anymore, but they had a feature before where you could share the results of what was generated with Agent GPT and just share a web page, the results. But let's curious, let's see how many pages we got. We got 57 pages worth of strategy, code, and things for our game, and probably span of what, 30 minutes. So I think that really kind of shows the power of these technologies, and particularly agents, is that you could set it off on a task, get 57 pages worth of strategy on your game, structure your game, task, and actual written code. So you can definitely see how these tools can be a game changer for your business, but also for just how you do things at work or do research at work. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to kind of open the floor for anyone to want to comment, talk, questions, and then we can kind of wrap up. And then also I can get some feedback on was this productive, helpful, how we can do things differently, and as well any topics anyone wants to maybe suggest for the next one. But yeah, I will kind of pause here and just let's get feedback here, because that's to make sure that this was productive for everyone here. I'm gonna take a look at the comments. Yeah, also I agree. I'm not sure where the GPT came from when it's general. Yeah, the acronym for GPT. 50 loops that you had running in the background make the game. You just finish up how. Oh yeah, how much did it cost? Oh, I should have checked that. Where's my OpenAI? Give me a second. I'll pull it up. Yeah, I should have clocked where I was before. I ran it, but I think you'll see it probably shouldn't have moved the needle much because I ran it using GPT 3.5. But let's just take a look at the usage. I think I was around $3 or $4. It didn't move the needle at all. I think I was around $3 or $4 already for today. It barely moved the needle. You'll definitely, I promise you, if you turn it to GPT-4, that $4 would probably be like $6 or $7, maybe more depending on how many tokens on some of the requests are running. So you'll definitely notice the difference if you're running Agent GPT 50 loops on GPT-4, but you will definitely see a noticeable difference. Actually, I can't remember which one of these. I think I did run a test one of these times where I ran it versus 3.5 versus 4. Yeah, this is the shareable version. So this is pretty cool. Is once you run the agent, you can kind of share this web page with someone, which is pretty neat. So I think that's a pretty neat feature of Agent GPT, that you can just share the outputs this way with someone. But yeah, to that question about cost, if you're running on 3.5, it will be pretty low, as in like 20-30 cents at the most. Zapier, yeah, Zapier API is again pretty amazing. When you're using what OpenAPI, thank you for the love, appreciate it. Agents, or when writing prompts, do these agents ever respond with questions asking for clarification? Oh yes, if you're For like, there's a few of them that allow, so actually I'll take, for like Agent GPT, I believe it has ability to kind of pause it, but for other ones like God mode, the default is that it does not run autonomously. What it will do is it will run through a task, it will complete the task, it will then ask you if it's approved to move on to the next action. So like for this one, it proposed the next action to be to go Google Steve Jobs app development philosophy. I would then approve its plan to continue on, or I could give it feedback to change its plan. So there are ones that don't completely run autonomously, or even with like God mode, you can tell it to run 10 minutes without approvals. And so a few of these tools have the same capabilities where you can allow it to run like automatic task, or it waits for approval at each task or each step of its process. So that's something to think about if that's important for your process that you want to fully control the workflow of the agent. You can use tools like either like God mode or some of the other ones I'm going to drop into the chat, where you have more control over each step or task of the agent and what it does next. And so like with God mode, you actually have to approve its next action before it executes it. So that's actually a good question concerning GPT models and internal operations. Are there any helpful videos, YouTubes? Yeah, I'm going to, from this call, I'm going to go back and share things that I have YouTubes for. But there's one question here about doing internal language models. And so, yeah, there are a couple of YouTube videos that I can share and I'll put into the chat around deploying your own language models and the infrastructure you need for doing that. And some of the tools like Pinecone are really pretty easy. There's some cloud-based solutions for your vector database like Pinecone. That's pretty easy. You create a free account, and once you create that free account, you can create your vector database that you can use to stand up your own language model. So then it's storing data for your interactions with your language model, and it's pretty easy. You can kind of create an index pretty quickly, and then you can either use a free one or do a paid tier that obviously gets you more speed and other things. But yeah, we created for our content creation automation with OpenAI, we're using Pinecone to train the AI on the content we create. And then we're going to deploy an AI chatbot that is trained on the content being generated in the site, so that people can have conversations with the AI to find content across the site. So being able to set up your own vector database to be able to start building your own AIs or language models against only your data is pretty neat stuff now. Game GP. All right. If there's no closing questions, I'm kind of scanning. I think I covered most of them. If I didn't cover them, I will drop comments in the meetup. Let's see here. I'm doing one last scan. And then also, yeah, feel free while closing out, please use the meetup page as a resource. If you have things you want to share, if there's things, I see there's some really great articles in here. I'm going to capture all of them post call and share them in the meetup group, so everyone has access to it. I'll share the call recording too on the meetup group. So for anyone who wants to share or share it with others or hype people up, let's get people here next time. I'm going to drop it looks like maybe we want to talk about automations next time. I'm just kind of scanning, but if there's other ideas, message me. I'm going to send out put up a little poll in the meetup group so we can get input, but we will, I'll try to schedule these once a week. If that's too often, let me know. We'll keep it virtual, and then it looks like we do have a lot of people in the DMV area. Once we get to a really good group and a consistent size, we'll start planning in person so we can meet in person. And there's a couple spaces I have relationships with that we can do some in-person meet and greets in DC, and we can, once we get a good rhythm going, we can start meeting in person and sharing ideas, drinks, food, and I have hopefully some sponsors that can pay for drinks. And if you want to sponsor, hey, shoot me a link or a call, and then we can get this going. It's been really great. We've gotten, even within a week, almost 200 members. So I think we have a really interesting topic talking about AI and work. So those who want to present, share ideas, message me, and I want to continue this going. I'm really passionate about AI and also very passionate about like hacking how I get work done more efficiently, as well as helping our team get more stuff done. And so the more we can share with others and learn from other people, I'm all for it. So I love it. And then AI generated presenters don't eat pizza. That is true, but I did create this presentation using AI, so I can only eat one slice. All right, I appreciate the love and hearts. That's pretty awesome, and I appreciate that. I'm starting to lose my voice, but I really appreciate everyone showing up and sharing their Wednesdays, their Wednesday here. I'm looking forward to other people presenting and sharing ideas next time. And I'll share my AI generated presentation, the recording, and all the comments with everyone here. And look forward to continuing to connecting with everyone here. All right, have a good Wednesday. All right, bye.
See you.